The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jim Wall. What's going on here? I'm the Executive Director with NIMS, the National Institute for Metalworking Skills, and we'd like to welcome you to today's webinar. It's going to discuss the opportunities that are available with the NIMS competency-based apprenticeship system. NIMS is an organization that works on a national scope to develop skill standards and certifications for the precision manufacturing industry. We are a stakeholder-driven organization. Our stakeholders are the major trade associations that represent precision manufacturing nationally. And we're proud to say that NIMS today is the standard for training in machining and precision manufacturing occupations. Shouldn't I just say machining? We do cover the gamut in terms of precision manufacturing occupations. The NIMS credentialing program is a national program. We've got over 1,000 public education institutions, both secondary and post-secondary, across the country who have implemented credentialing and are offering credentialing through their programs. We've also got individual companies, training providers, government programs, the military, all using the industry-recognized credentials that are offered by NIMS. And that credentialing program, the vast majority of our credentialing has happened in schools, but with the increase in interest in apprenticeship, there's a great opportunity to get synergy to build on what's happening with our public education systems in terms of credentialing, and also build into a larger use of credentialing in industry using the competency-based apprenticeship system. If you look at it nationally, our credentialing numbers have really skyrocketed, and particularly in the last 3 or 4 years. Last year was a record-breaking year with the credentialing activity nationally increased about 58% over the previous year. So we're really excited about that. But it really does, I think, again, provide that opportunity to build on credentialing that are happening in schools and companies, but also move it into the apprenticeship arena. There are, as many of you know, there are jobs in precision manufacturing. Currently, right now, there are 100,000 jobs in just machining alone. If you look at the whole industrial maintenance world of thing, there's another 117,000 jobs that are going to need to be filled. Most of these jobs are replacement jobs to replace people who are retiring or otherwise leaving the occupation. There really is tremendous opportunity all across the country for people that have skills in our industry. Currently, we're hearing from companies all across the country that they want to grow, but one of the constraints to their growth is that they cannot find skilled labor. They're really worried about the number of people retiring and not having that pipeline of skilled people to replace them in many communities. There's has been not a lot of people looking at this career field in the past several years, so there really is a kind of a pent-up demand and a lack of supply of skilled workers, and that's actually a good thing in terms of apprenticeship, because more and more companies are recognizing that these skilled workers aren't going to necessarily just show up at their doorstep or be dropped from heaven, that they're going to have to grow their own, train their own, and we've gotten calls, increasing calls on a weekly basis from companies wanting information about how they can reinvigorate or begin new apprenticeship programs within their companies. So, Our solution for this is the NIMS Competency-based apprenticeship system, which we've worked in cooperation with the U.S. Department of Labor and many state apprenticeship agencies across the country to develop the competency-based apprenticeship system, which from its outset was designed to fundamentally change and dramatically improve the way workers are trained in American manufacturing. We look at the competency-based system to implement a system that recognizes skills and competencies and the attainment of those skills and competencies in lieu of a rigid set of hours. You know, historically, apprenticeships have been a time-based program, whether it was, 8,000, 10,000 hours, and people would get raises in a progressive system throughout that, maybe every 1,000 hours or every 2,000 hours. With a competency-based system, the attainment of skills and competencies and a demonstration of that, the performance ability of those competencies is how people move through the system. And we've piloted this with companies large and small and have had really good feedback in that the training tends to be more effective, and it's very easier for companies to monitor and measure the progress of apprentices moving through the system. But the system also provides advantages to the individual apprentice as they move through in the competency-based format. Those who are motivated and can do the job, can demonstrate the competence, can move through the system a little bit quicker. And those who need a little bit more time on a specific competency might actually take a little bit more time. Our experience has been with the competency-based system that things kind of balance out. That usually we see some people getting done a little bit quicker, but we also see some people taking a little bit longer. So it kind of balances out. But the bottom line is that people move through the system based on their ability to demonstrate specific skills and abilities, and not simply moving through based on time. We actually implemented the use of the NIMS industry recognized credentials as a part of that system. It's not just the attainment of the NIMS credentials, but the NIMS credentials are a third-party validation of the skills that are outside of the company. The person the individual apprentice, as they move through the system, they earn NIMS credentials, but they also are getting signed off on meeting the individual company's quality requirements on each of the competencies that have been identified to be part of the apprenticeship system. So it's really a two-part system. You have the national NIMS credentials to evaluate the skill, performance, and knowledge against a national standard, but the individual company also can implement and have to sign off on the completion of the attainment of the competencies that meet the company's requirements. We've got the NIMS competency-based apprenticeship system covers really 4 occupational areas: precision machining, metal forming, machine maintenance, service and repair, and machine building, and tool and die and mold making occupations. And this is each one of them. We've got national guideline standards that an expert panel of people from those specific industries came together to develop the core competencies and lay out the system for those particular occupations. And the whole idea of this using the NIMS, the competency-based system, is that you have a system that allows people to stack credentials, and through this system, a student could start in a NIMS-based program in a high school program, move on to a community or technical college, and then into the apprenticeship arena with the credentials just stacking up as they move through, so people don't have to repeat what they already know. They get the credentials become a vehicle for articulation between the programs. The NIMS competency-based apprenticeship model, at its core, has these core competencies that industry work groups identified as being a minimum core competencies that anyone at any company across the country should be competent at. If we look at the machinist occupation, for example, there are 26 core competencies that are part of that apprenticeship model, and anyone who completes the NIMS competency-based machinist apprenticeship program will have had someone in their company sign them off as being have demonstrated competence on those 26 core competence. And we also, in that system, would have 12 NIMS credentials that are part of it. So they would have completed that, got the sign-off on the company, and also completed the competency requirements and the credentials. Now, that's at a minimum, and in each company in the system has additional competencies that define their business and their niche in the market, if you will. So the system is designed for each company to have the ability to add additional job-specific competencies and company-specific competencies to the program, so that we start with a core that would apply nationally, but then each company along the way would be able to customize it, if you will, to add additional competencies and credentials, if they apply, to meet their individual business needs of their company and their specific operations. Some companies we work with look at the core competencies for a particular occupation and say that fits us, that's what we need. Other companies say, well, we need those core competencies, but we've got 5 or 6, 7 more that we need apprentices in our company to do, and that's the way that the program was designed, was to allow that flexibility, that we have a system that would apply nationally, but also have the flexibility to meet individual companies' needs. As part of the system, we've worked to develop some curriculum guides to help define the related technical training that would be part of the program. The competencies have been identified, and the measurements have been identified, both measurements at the company level and also with the NIMS credentials. So there are tools to help individual companies build a program. You don't have to start from scratch. And these tools are available for download on the NIMS website, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Currently, the occupations that have been completed and there are national guideline standards available for include machinist, CNC programmer, CNC operator, machine builder, machine tool maintenance technician, stamping press operator, mold maker, and tool and die maker. Several of these were relatively new occupations that hadn't existed in the past. The CNC machinist and CNC operator are two that are two of the newest industry occupations that have been registered with the U.S. Department of Labor in terms of a national guideline standard. One of the benefits that we see to companies in working with the apprenticeship system and offering an apprenticeship program is to provide that career path that is increasingly attractive to young people and their parents. It is a way to really work locally to source talent that might not otherwise be available. And the reality is that for many companies, they're seeing that the establishment of an apprenticeship program as an investment in their future workforce, and actually an investment in the future of their companies, because many companies are seeing this as a strategic advantage that while there is such a shortage of skilled workers in our industry, those companies that are being proactive today in building an apprenticeship model within their company are actually helping to guarantee that they do have a future workforce. And for many companies that we're working with, many of the times they're small to medium-sized companies, and this is maybe the first attempt that they've had to really build a customized training program within their company. So it really can be a benefit to not have to reinvent the wheel, to capitalize on the work from people in many, many other companies who have come together to develop this system that everyone can benefit by, and if they, the individual companies choose to get involved. There are benefits to the apprentice. If we look at work and learn models, the apprenticeship has been around for a long, long time, and it is recognized certainly within our industry of a model that works and has worked in the past. Many companies over the last 20 years or so kind of got away from apprenticeship, but we really are seeing a major resurgence and interest in apprenticeship, and with this new model of a competency-based apprenticeship system, it can really be attractive to young people and their parents. The attainment of industry recognized credentials is increasingly valued across manufacturing spectrum and really across the whole educational spectrum. We look at career and technical education in the United States. More and more schools and colleges are using industry credentials as a performance measure for their programs. So, with more and more students earning some of the basic credentials in the secondary and post-secondary arena, it really makes a lot of sense for companies to get involved and to help apprentices build on what they've already know and have proven they can do with additional higher-level credentials, and that can be done very effectively with a competency-based apprenticeship system. We think that more and more companies, when they get involved, we can better define their career path nationally, and that's one of the issues we face in our industry. If we look at other industries, if someone wants to be a nurse, for example, pretty much anyone in the country can tell you, what you have to do, what the licensing requirement is to become a registered nurse. If we talk about a machinist or a press setup technician, and you ask most people, they're not going to be able to explain to you what that career path is and how to get there. But, by working together and having more companies implement a competency-based system that builds on what people know in school, we can better define that career path and have it consistent across the country. And that can only help our industry tremendously as we move forward. I'd like to turn the webinar over now to Greg Chambers, who's the Director of Compliance at Oberg Industries, and Greg has been involved with apprenticeship for many, many years. Greg, are you on?
Yes, Jim, I'm on the line. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead, Greg.
Thanks, Jim. And first off, I want to thank NIMS for inviting me to share our journey with all of you on the webinar today, as well as really thank him for giving us the opportunity to talk about what we've done with NIMS and how that's helped us in our apprenticeship program. As Jim has mentioned, I have been doing apprenticeship for a while. I've been fortunate to serve on several of the expert panels that actually devised and developed some of the National Apprenticeship Guideline Standards. I've also become a member of the Pennsylvania State Apprenticeship Council, as well as the U.S. Department of Labor's Secretary's Advisory Committee on Apprenticeship. Next slide, please. So regarding the company that I work for, Oberg Industries, we're really not a household name. We don't advertise at halftime of the Super Bowl, but we were founded in 1948, so we've been around a while. We have over $110 million in sales. That was as of last year, and we should be over 120, 125 this year. We have close to 800 employees worldwide. The 700 employees were the established employee headcount last year. We have facilities in Pennsylvania, Costa Rica, and Mexico that actually do our manufacturing, but we also have sales offices and distribution centers throughout the world in Germany, China, Singapore. So even though we're a very small company, we are globally involved with the advanced manufacturing field. You can see in the fourth bullet, we specialize in stamping, tooling, multi-axis, 5-axis, 6+, medium, turning, grinding, lapping. We also have an in-house technology group that comes and develops manufacturing solutions for our customers. And finally, our apprenticeship program, it is a registered program, so we're registered with the United States Department of Labor as well as the Veterans Administration and the state of Pennsylvania. So one thing I did want to emphasize about Overt Industries is that we are a non-organized company, so we don't have a union, and we are an employee-owned company. So all of us are directly impacted by the decisions we make regarding our apprenticeship program. Next slide, please. Overt's apprenticeship program is an earn while you learn program that is completely free to the apprentice themselves. We pay for books, we pay for their time, but it is a combination of work-based learning with not just CBT, but we also have a blended learning approach. So we have instructor-led, we have distance learning, we have video-based learning, as well as CBT included in our apprenticeship program. But there is absolutely no cost to the students. We provide everything. And that last bullet, our goal is for each apprentice to be successful, and at the conclusion of their apprenticeship, when they graduate, they will have NIMS credentials as well as Department of Labor Journey Worker Certificate. Next slide. So how do we get started? Well, the very first thing you need to do is ask these questions to yourself, and if you can't answer yes to the first 3 questions, then you might want to reconsider, because training won't solve everything. For instance, if your problem that you're experiencing is due to a management issue, maybe the managers won't allow your people to implement the training or use the training correctly, then obviously that's not a training issue. But if your people don't know what to do or don't know how to do it or can't do it well enough to meet your quality requirements, then perhaps training is the key. So you might want to consider it there. But you got to ask this question and be honest about it. So many times management uses training as a knee-jerk solution for most of its problems, but unfortunately, training can't solve everything. But if done correctly, training can be one of the most strategic programs in your company, especially apprenticeship training, those coming in the front door. Next slide. So why apprenticeship? Because there is a difference between registered apprenticeship, which is what we've been talking about so far, and training programs. You can achieve the first 3 bullets with a training program, no doubt about that. But the only way to achieve that 4th bullet is if you have some sort of registered program or program that provides industry-recognized credentials. That's what's going to give you those nationally portable skills that people are looking for right now. So another thing that you might want to consider about why registered apprenticeship will help you with your quality audits. One of the things auditors come into your company looking for is proof of competency. How do you know your people are competent? If you have a registered program, then that you have third-party validation by the U.S. Department of Labor that your program will give you the results that you're looking for. So that's one of the other benefits of having a registered program. Some states also provide additional funding streams if you operate a registered program. So registered apprenticeship does offer some benefits that training programs do not. Bottom line is really recognition, though. In a fluid economy, employees value proof of competency because there's just fewer and fewer people out there taking advantage of lifetime employment with a single employer. So people are moving all over the place, changing jobs, switching occupation, but in reality, that's why they use the term journey workers. Next slide. So this is the 4-phase process that we went through: design, implementation, evaluation, and improvement. So that is the basic apprenticeship model that we were following. So I guess what I'd like to do here is take a step back and explain about our journey. We originally started out as a time-based program. And for 30 years, we actually did a time-based program, and we had good success with it. Unfortunately, we found out that time is really focused on the trainer, not the trainee. It's really measuring how much mud you're throwing on the wall, not how much mud you're sticking on the wall. So the time-based program, after we really dug into it, it's kind of like baking a cake or making toast. You put it in and you set a timer, and at the end of the time, then you're assuming the toast is going to be good. But you really don't focus on the output. And for 30 years we did this, but we had success, but the key there was you got to make sure your input's pretty consistent, because what you're really measuring is your process. So we decided 15 years ago to go to a competency-based program, and NIMS played a big part in that. And in the competency-based program, what you're really focusing on is not the trainer, but the trainee. So instead of measuring how much mud you're throwing on the wall, you're measuring how much mud is sticking to the wall. So it's a real subtle difference, but it is a difference nonetheless. So it's learner-focused. It's much more difficult to design and manage because you have to know where the learner stands at all times. But if done correctly, it really pays off big dividends. Your selection process in a competency-based program plays less of a role than it does in a time-based program because you're focusing on your outcome, you're focusing on your learner. So your process does not have to be standardized, and your input doesn't have to be consistent. So in today's market, it's really the way to go. You're really shooting for consistency of output, knowing that your input may vary. So you're product-focused or outcome-based rather than process-focused. So for 15 years, we've been doing that, and we've been doing it and have great results, of which I'll share a little bit later. But what I'd like to do now is actually drill down into each of these boxes and tell you how we did what we did. So next slide. On the design side, first thing you have to do is identify your future state. So how we did that is we actually went to our customers. We want everything in our company to be customer focused. So we asked the customers what they needed in a vendor, what they needed in a supplier. We also went to our trade associations to find out where the markets were leaning, where things were going to be tomorrow. And then we went to our manager staff, not just our senior management, but that would be a great place to start because you usually have your 3 or 5 year strategic plan that you can use as a reference guide. But it gives you the idea and a glimpse into where you want to be in the future. But you got to identify those desired skills. After we did that, we came back and we identified the skills that we have presently. So we had to be honest about this, and I can't emphasize that enough. You got to be honest where you stand. I know we all think we're good, but there's areas where we all are short. So we conducted interviews all through the plant. We looked over performance appraisals. We looked through our quality and production reports to find out where we were weak. And once we determined those areas, we can identify the gaps. And those gaps then become your training objectives for your competency-based program. Remember, you're focused on the product of your program, your outcome. So those gaps are going to take you from your current state, which is where you are right now, identifying your workforce skills, to your future state where you want to be. Next slide. Besides doing that, we actually tried to find resources. And this is where NIMS will prove invaluable for you. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are a lot of studies, reports, government agencies that can assist you. And if you go to nimsready.org, you can actually find performance standards, guidances, credentialing. Those things that Jim mentioned earlier in the webinar, you can find those things and they can help you to get started. What we did is actually adopted them wholeheartedly. And then we added on to those competencies, our own individual competencies, so that we can end up with an employee that would fit our workplace. So besides going and getting your resources, Now we had to decide how we were going to present the instruction. So you got different variations, as I mentioned earlier. Right now we're using computer-based training, instructor-led classes, distance learning classes, as well as video-based learning. But that's something that you must decide for yourself. Also consider that you have different audiences. So if you run a night turn or an evening shift, you might not be able to do instructor-led classes for them. Or you might not be able to do computer-based classes if you don't have the bandwidth on your server. So you got to understand what you're able to do and then select that instructional style. After you select this instructional style, then you want to select how you're going to evaluate your program. And the key here is just determining how good is good. So all of us, or I should say all of the companies, have their internal criteria that they use to measure their product and also determine when their output is good. You want to build those into your apprenticeship program. So you're not talking apples and oranges. The same business metrics and criteria that you use to run your business should be also part of your apprenticeship program. So that's going to be something that you want to do in the design phase. You don't want to have that happen as a circumstance. You want to shoot for that in the design of your program. The curriculum guides that Jim mentioned has reference lists for a lot of the related instruction for the particular competencies. So you might want to check with those and see if that's something that you can use and adopt within your company. Whenever you design your process, design it with the stakeholders and your metrics in mind. So when at the end of the 4-step process, you can close the loop. If you don't do that, you're really inviting trouble for yourself because you're really hoping that you're going to get the results instead of designing for results. So that design phase is really important. Next slide. Once you design it, then you have to do a couple things. You have to select your trainers now. Again, you want to select your trainers with your goals in mind. I would strongly recommend that your trainers be certified in NIMS OJT, if they're going to be doing on-the-job training. So many times we promote people in the training positions, but we give them no background, no theory on how to conduct the training and how to transfer knowledge. We had all of our instructors become certified instructors through NIMS OJT. Some were just OJT instructors, some were senior OJT instructors. But we want to make sure our trainers have that background and how to transfer knowledge properly to adults. So I highly recommend that before the implementation phase kicks in, you get your trainer certified or make sure they have some kind of background. Besides that, you want to select your training location. So is your training location going to be in a specific geographic space within your company or your building? For us, we decided against that. So our training takes place on the floor, but all over the company. We have one area where we focus people initially. But after that, they could receive their training all throughout the company. We do not have them identified or labeled as apprentices. They blend in right with the regular working population. So if you would walk down the aisle, you would not know who's an apprentice and who's a journey worker. But once you have your trainers and your location set up, then the last thing you need to do is establish your timing. Your timing is that balance between your production and your training. Are you going to be doing training during production hours, after production hours? If so, are you going to dedicate a day or a certain amount of time where the training takes place, or are you going to let it all be kind of freestanding? So you want to establish that timing so you can get that balance, because initially everyone's excited about the apprenticeship program, but as it starts to eat into production and as those hot jobs and those deadlines start creeping up, people get cold feet and want to back away. But up front, you got to establish that yes, this is the balance that we're going to have, and we're going to stick to it. So obviously that requires some discipline. Once you do that, then you want to set up your equipment. So you have your training area, you have your balance between when they're going to be doing production, when they're going to be learning. Now you got to start setting up your equipment. Now, if you're going to have CBT as your related instruction, you obviously got to have some computer terminals or computer workplaces where you're going to have quiet enough that they can actually learn. If you're going to actually do some OJT on the floor, then what production machines are going to be dedicated toward training and when? Well, all these questions you have to ask yourself, and that's what we've done during our particular formulation. We went through all of these phases that I'm telling you because we want to make sure once we establish the program, we can do just like the first bullet says, just do it. So we've also set up financial guidelines, and what I mean by that is a company going to pay for books and resources? Are you going to pay for supplies? Are you going to pay for your perishables? Or is that going to be part of the apprenticeship? Will they be responsible for that? How about the time it takes for them to learn? Are you going to pay them for their time, or is that something they're going to do on their own? So all of your financial guidelines you're going to have to set up too, as well as your documentation. All of your communication, your marketing material, how are you going to get people involved in the apprenticeship program or interested in the apprenticeship program? All of your policies, how they're going to act, what is your failure cutoff? Is it 80%, 70%? What happens if they fail? Do they have to take it on their own time? Do you give them another chance? But all of this documentation and policy work has to be prepared up front. And then finally, you've got to set up your evaluation system and your record-keeping system. So what do you want to keep? Because if you are going to be a registered apprenticeship program, it will be audited, guaranteed, that the government will be in every year checking out to make sure you're doing what you say you're doing. But if you're in advanced manufacturing or something like that, you're used to it because you have quality audits, whether it's ISO or some other standard. And if you're in the educational system, you're used to audits also. So you want to make sure you give your trainees an opportunity to apply the training whenever you implement it. So you just don't want to give them credit for the competency if they perform at one time. You want to make sure that they can perform that multiple times and also over the course of their training. So if you kind of put your training program and set it up so they do it and then they don't have to do it for the next 4 years, you're really doing yourself a disservice. So make sure those trainees have opportunity to apply it. As I mentioned, the trainers got to have their OJT certification, and you want to gather your evaluation information while you're actually implementing your program. Next slide, please. So on the evaluation and improvement side, the goal is consistency. When we set up our competency-based program using the NIMS core competencies, we decided that even if we got bad results, or I shouldn't say bad, but results that were not as good as the time-based system, we were going to go ahead because that whole structure of apprenticeship programs, even especially a competency-based program like NIMS is proposing, is that it gives you a great opportunity for continuous improvement. So once you get that structure down, now you can build upon that structure and improve that structure rather than trying to address a bunch of variables at once. You can really pinpoint things that need change, and you can tweak and modify and adjust to see what kind of results you get. What we decided to do with our program, we focused on 4 areas. We focused on product, process, personal attributes, and productivity. So that is what we evaluated, and each one of those areas lined up well with our company's strategic plan. So the product or the outcome of the apprentice's work, we evaluate. The process, how they do the work, we evaluate. The personal attributes of the apprenticeship, of the apprentice, as well as their productivity. So those are the process evaluation materials that we gather. Once we gather them, we present them to stakeholders. We present it to them on a monthly, daily, or an annual basis. And then we go back once a year and we gather all of the instructors, all of the apprentice coordinators, and we revisit the original design. That goes back to that structure that provides opportunity for continuous improvement. We then change it and re-implement it. So over the 15 years or so we've been doing competency-based apprenticeship, we probably revised our program at least 8 times, almost completely changed it. but it's just getting to that refining area where you're adding and deleting things that make sense or don't make sense. For instance, technology changes. So 10 years ago, CNC was not in the demand that it is now. It wasn't to the point of use where it is now. So we had some CNC in our program. Today, it's predominantly CNC. We have very little manual machines. So those are the kind of changes that take place and wasn't even directly related to our apprenticeship program, but just the technology change. So the competency-based program can address that. Time-based programs really did not. Next slide, please. So what are our outcomes? We do have enhanced customer satisfaction. Our customers are really pleased with how we develop our people. Our customers all come in to audit us. So one of their questions is, how do you know your people are competent? And with the competency-based program, we can actually lay out the competencies for them. They know how the competencies relate to their product, so we can easily communicate in that area. It's enabled us to go into new markets. So again, you're setting up your program based on your future state. So even though you might not be in certain markets today, if you set up your competency-based program well, you'll address those competencies so that in time you can actually enter into different markets. And you can time it with your sales and marketing people so that when they're ready to start cold calling in different markets, you have the people that are able to actually produce the product. Alignment of company values with culture. This is something that's kind of particular to Oberg. We have 8 values that we had to embed into our apprenticeship system. Those 8 values were quality workmanship, teamwork, productivity, personal responsibility, safety, customer service, positive work ethic, and on-time delivery. But we actually embedded those into the apprenticeship program. So all the while that the apprentices are learning how to do their hard skills, they're also learning about the company values and getting that reinforced. We found out the apprenticeship program has improved our quality, profitability, and productivity. We usually see apprentices go from a negative to a positive return on investment around year 2, but at the end of their apprenticeship, return on investment is usually well over 100, some are over 1,000. The documentation metrics we use and keep are based on Kirkpatrick 4 evaluation levels. So for all of our learning and instruction, we have feedback sheets to see how well they liked it. We also gauge and measure their learning through our NIMS credentials, as well as pre- and post-tests for all of the related instruction. We get some behavior measurements through our ERP system, and those behavior measurements might be scrap, rework, absenteeism, productivity, speed, and obviously the business results are our return on investment. So we can capture all these particular metrics, and we design these in when we design the program. So our outcomes for our apprenticeship program from a competency-based standpoint have been outstanding. We are very pleased with it. We are very proud of it. And that's going to be something that we will, in fact, we're expanding our competency-based program to include all of our time-based programs, no matter where they are. So we've converted all of our time-based program over a competency-based program, and we've used NIMS as the core competencies in the development of those programs. And then we've just added on to that. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce one of our apprentices. I'm glad that he's here. He started back in 2008. He was hired right out of high school. And he graduated from the apprenticeship program last year. And I just asked him to do it. He's a typical apprentice. But he was hired during that last big recession, which tells you a lot. When people were laying people off, we were hiring people, and Dylan's one of the people that we hired. So for those that didn't take advantage of that, they missed out on a great opportunity. So Dylan, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hi, I'm Dylan Toy, a machinist at Oberg Industries. I ran a machining center and makes the electrodes for the EDM department. I always wanted to become a machinist, working on complex parts, and learning the new machine technology. I went to Lenape Votech for precision machining for 2 years, my junior and senior year of high school. Through Lenape, I joined the team at Oberg Industries through the co-op program. I really liked the team and atmosphere at Oberg. I entered through the apprenticeship program, which included computer-based training, classroom training, and moving around to different work locations. Recently completed the apprenticeship program and was hired full-time as a Toolmaker 2 because of my leadership and skills I developed in the apprenticeship program. I like that the apprenticeship program included NIMS credentials, helped measure my progress and ultimately my skills. NIMS credentials help translate the skills and knowledge learned in the apprenticeship. I like that the credentials enhance my skills and abilities, and the apprenticeship is a big part of entering the workforce of Oberg, and I think it's a great program.
Thank you, Dylan. We'd like to talk a little bit about some next steps. We would encourage those of you who are interested and would like to get more information about the NIMS Competency-Based Apprenticeship Program to contact us. There are a number of resources that are available on the web. You can go to nimsready.org. Is a new website that was just launched a few weeks ago specifically for employers to get more concise information. There is also additional information on the main NIMS website at nims-skills.org. And we'd be glad to connect with you and help you get started down the journey of creating or reinvigorating, if you already have an apprenticeship program within your company. There is a lot of resources that are available. In the United States, our apprenticeship system, there are roughly 25 states which rely for apprenticeship on the United States Department of Labor. The other 25 states have state apprenticeship councils or state apprenticeship agencies that are also there to help, and we can help you make connections with that staff in each state depending on your location. We definitely would love to work with you to help get more apprenticeship programs in our industry started and reinvigorated, and we think it's a tremendous opportunity and stand ready to help you move forward in this journey. So that concludes the formal presentation for today. For more information, you can contact us at NIMS either by email or phone, and Greg Chambers would also be available to speak to you in terms of what's happening at Oberg. So we thank you very much for your attendance today and look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you very much.